Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to our Parsha perspectives for today. So glad that you are here as we have the privilege of studying Parsha's Tzav, as well as giving a few thoughts on the Megillah. First of all, as always, we begin with gratitude to our generous sponsors. Parsha's series sponsor for the year, our dear friends Becky and Avi Katz and family. In memory of Becky's father, David Grossman, Lili Nishmas, David Ben Menachem Monish. This morning's shir, sponsored by Michael Goldman, in memory of his in-laws, Cantor and Mrs. Abraham Bruin, formerly of Long Beach, New York. The Shama should have an aliyah. Thank you very much for your generosity and your sponsorship. And this is the last week, if you help us get to our goal. This is the last week of mentioning the BRS Global Campaign. If you're a member of BRS, thank you for your membership. Thank you for enabling all of our learning and teaching and streaming and writing. If you're not a member of BRS and you are benefiting and enjoying, which if you're hearing this right now, either live or later, that means you are hopefully benefiting or enjoying. Otherwise, it's unclear exactly why you're hearing this. Please go on brsonline.org/global, brsonline.org/global. If you've not done your part, you'd be hard-pressed to explain to me why. If you benefit and you enjoy and you don't take a moment to give whatever you can, whatever level you can, I would be very curious to know why you don't think it's worth your hakaras hatov or your help to enable us to continue. So please take that moment, help us get to our goal, brsonline.org/global, and there will be people in the lobby right after for those who are here live to be able to give. So I want to share two quick thoughts on Purim, and then we'll get into Parshat Tzav. And even if you're listening to this later, it's Thursday night or Friday, it is Shushan Purim, and these Purim thoughts remain relevant and important. The first comes from Avraham Schorr, the great Avraham Schorr, the Lekach v'Halibov, and he says the following: Yadua ki b'poskim yesh deos b'din mishloach manos iboinin she'davka idei shliach ulo. We know there's a big discussion among halachic authorities, among poskim, whether specifically one should give their mishloach manos. The Megillah tells us that the way we commemorate, one of the ways that we celebrate and we honor this miracle, we survived an extermination attempt. The Jews of Shushan not only survived, but they thrived. And we have several different ways in which we express and reflect that miracle, express our gratitude, commemorate it. And one of them is Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu. We deliver to a friend 2 food items, not now for the halachic analysis, how you define 2 separate food items, 2 food groups, raw versus cooked, solid versus liquid, all the halachas that go into the definition of Mishloach Manos. But one of the ways that we commemorate and we re-experience, so to say, the miracle is Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu. We give Mishloach Manos. Don't spend too much money. Don't spend too much time. Don't be competitive with your neighbor about it. But Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu. If you have limited resources and you can either put them into Matanos Levyonim, you could give more money to help others, or have fancier, more impressive, more competitive Mishloach Manos. The Rambam is clear. The halacha is clear. Put more money into helping others than impressing others with your Mishloach Manos. The Rambam gives a fascinating reason, by the way. The Rambam says, you know why? If I were giving that Musar Shmuz, I'd say, you have underprivileged people. You have people suffering or struggling. You have those that are going to have mac and cheese for their Purim Suda. They can't afford meat and wine. Of course you have to help them. Helping them supersedes, comes before impressing others with your Mishloach Manos. But that's not the reason the Rambam gives. You know what the reason the Rambam gives is? What's the essence of the holiday of Purim? What are we trying to experience? I'll give you a hint. We're experiencing not only Purim, we're experiencing it the entire month of Adar. Misha Nechnas Adar Marbim B'what? Marbim B'simcha, writes the Rambam. You know what will give you more simcha? Nothing gives you more simcha than helping others. It's more joyful, it's more pleasant, it's more pleasurable to help others than it is to impress others. So if you have limited resources, and you could put them into either Matanos Levyonim or Mishloach Manos, Matanos Levyonim. You have to fulfill the basic mitzvah of Mishloach Manos. One has to fulfill the basic obligation, but the basic obligation doesn't include lucite, personalized containers, doesn't include expensive, over-the-top, special order, whatever. So Matanos Levyonim. Okay, that's a personal pet peeve of mine. So in that context, there's a discussion. Should you specifically deliver Mishloach Manos, Aidei Shliach? Rather than give directly, should you ask somebody to be your agent, your representative, and to give it on your behalf? There's a debate. Wonders Rav Avram Schorr, what happened to the principle of mitzvah bo yosem b'shlucha? I thought the whole idea is we do mitzvos. It's preferable not to delegate. It's preferable not to outsource. We show our love and our affection that we cherish and value a mitzvah when we eagerly do it ourselves. When we outsource or delegate, we look like we're trying to simply unburden ourselves from it. So what happened? Why don't we apply that principle? The Gemara derives that principle, by the way, in the context of preparing for Shabbos. Turn Friday into Erev Shabbos. The Gemara talks about our great rabbis. They didn't hire help to wash the floor and set the table and shop and cook. They did it themselves. Rav Machrech Resha, he would cut off the head of the fish, and this one would go clean the meat, and this one would go. We do it ourselves. We don't delegate it to others. So what happened in Mitzvah Bo? Yoser mi b'shlucho. So the Pnei Menachem, the Ger Rebbe, Rabbi Schorr quotes, had a very beautiful idea. He says this is an unusual feature of Purim. Ordinarily, every other mitzvah, every other holiday, we say, mitzvah bo yoser mi b'shlucho. Better to do it yourself than through an agent. But the exception to that rule is Purim. And why is Purim the exception to that rule? Why should it be al yidei shliach? Why specifically should you do it through an agent to deliver the mishloach manos rather than do it through yourself? And he says basically the following. Ordinarily, there's a wall, there's a barrier. Ordinarily, there's a division between people. There's you and there's me. There's I and there's thou. We're different. We're altogether different, independent, separate, and apart. But the mitzvah mishloach manos is to create a sense of ahavta l'orecha kamocha. We're trying to generate a sense of that there's a camaraderie, a companionship, a connection, that we're all in this together, that we focus on what we have in common, not which that divides us. So therefore, on Purim specifically, whenever there's an ego, there's an I, there's an anochi, so I'm the one doing the mitzvah. I want the gishmak, I want the thrill, I want the satisfaction, I want the fulfillment, I want the credit. But sometimes there's a point where we realize, you know what? Even all that I do, I'm not really doing. When the surgeon successfully heals the patient, they're just an agent for Hashem. When the lawyer successfully makes the argument to defend the person, they're an agent of Hashem. When a rabbi gives a speech or offers a psak or comfort or counsel, they're an agent of Hashem. Every one of us in any capacity we're in, we realize that as much as we should be proud of the effort that we exert, but its success is not us. We are simply agents. We are messengers of Hashem. Sfasema says in Parsha Shlah, the whole reason we're here is to represent Him. We are here on this earth to be His angels, to hold that door, to say please and thank you, to call and check in, to show up and support, to heal and to help all the people around us. In this world, one of our names, we're just defined, we're called a shliach mitzvah. It's why we're here. We're just agents. You know, to quote a certain great series, we serve at the pleasure of the king, not the president. We serve at the pleasure of the king. So if you've been recruited to the cabinet, the most powerful person on earth, would you ever feel like it's me, it's I'm responsible? You say, I serve at the pleasure of the king. So we are his agents. That's our mission. That's our very definition. It's our very identity here on earth. The secret to our success is to never take pride, is to never have it feed our ego, is to never think it's us or we're independent. But the more that we realize, whatever capacity we serve, professionally and personally, that we are just agents of above, that we are ambassadors of Hashem, that we are here to advance His mission on earth, we'll be matzliach, we'll be successful. Any success we meet is only because of the force and the will of Hashem, the Mishalech, of the one who sends us, not because we are the shliach. So when you get to that point where you realize, I'm just an extension of, I'm no different from, I don't have an independent identity, then it doesn't make a difference, the Mishalech or the Shliach. So really, when you receive my Mishloach Manos, it's not from me. Who and what enabled me to buy, to organize, to purchase, to put together, and to transmit to you this Mishloach Manos? It's all from Hashem. So what's the difference whether you got it from me or you got it from another person? I don't need the pride. I don't need the ego. I don't need to impress you. I don't need to feel good about myself. I don't need the credit, because really all I am is an agent of Hashem. So specifically when it comes to the mitzvahs of Purim, where a person is supposed to live with such an acute awareness of Hashem, with such an ongoing faith in the presence of Hashem, there is no me, there is no you. All there is us as an extension of Him, of Hashem. So whether I deliver it or whether you deliver it for me, unlike other times where I'm focused on getting the credit or having the positive experience, all I care about is the result, because equally we are agents of Hashem. And this is how Rav Schorr concludes. Those walls, those barriers, those divisions that normally divide us, they're erased. They're gone on Purim. You know where they were gone? On the way to the gas chamber. You know they were gone in the moment of liberation from the camps. The Jewish people are threatened, and when we survive, we don't focus on, well, you have a different yarmulke than I do, you send your kids to a different school than I do, you voted for a different party than I did, so therefore I can't stand next to you on the way into the gas chamber. And I won't sing and dance with you on the way liberated out of the camp. No one said such a thing. When you're collectively threatened and you collectively survive, nobody says such a thing. Nobody cares about the differences and the divisions. All we see is the commonality. All we see is the unity. So Purim, we were threatened, and Purim, we survived. And Purim, we acknowledge that even when Hashem's name is not in the Megillah, it's really all from Him. We feel connected with Him. So those artificial divisions, those man-made, unnecessary, absolutely gratuitous divisions that normally break us apart, they're gone. And therefore, normally we say, Yosem b'shlucho, better for me to do it than for you to do it. Better for me to do it myself. Better for me to show that love, that affection, that eagerness to do it myself. But Purim's the exception. Sheish bittul mechitzos beinad l'chavero, ein kan lo ani velo hu. U'memela b'matzav kazeh ein mitzvah bo Yosem b'shlucho. So in that matzav, in that state, there is no me, there is no you. All there is us as an extension of Him. You deliver it, I'll deliver it. It doesn't really matter. This is the one mitzvah we do, Ayidei Shliach. I think a second explanation, he doesn't mention this, Rav Schorr, that you could suggest is Purim is all about bittul. Purim is all about getting rid of our sense of das. All year round, I think, I understand, I comprehend, I see. Purim, I realize that I have no idea. And whether it's through a medium of a little extra l'chaims, or whether it's simply the mindfulness to say, Ad lo yada, I don't know anything. I don't understand anything. Everyone comes in a costume. I don't even know who everyone is. That's the origin of the costume. The world is v'nahapochu. It's upside down. I think I can predict, anticipate. I think I understand. I think I control. Purim, I let it all go. I let go and I let God. I don't understand anything. I can't predict anything. Have these last 2 years not taught us anything? If they've not taught us anything, it's we can't predict, we shouldn't anticipate, and we shouldn't think we can control anything. Nothing. Nothing about this virus, nothing about the geopolitical war that's taking place and God forbid won't escalate. We don't know, we can't control, we don't anticipate anything. V'nahapochu, the world is upside down. We wear costumes to say we can't even understand on the surface, the superficial. We don't even know who one another is, or how we appear is not really what is. Everything is upside down and backwards. So specifically on that holiday, it's not about me. There is no anochi. I have no sense of I. I relinquish, I absolutely nullify my sense of I. I submit and surrender to Hashem in the ultimate way. That's Purim, and that's why I can do it Ayidei Mishalech. One other quick thought, and then we dive into Parsha Tzav together. Dive in. And that is from Mori Rabbi Rav Asher Weiss, Minchas Asher. He says such a beautiful idea. You know, unlike normally the Sefer Torah, the way we read the Torah is it's rolled, it's a scroll. And when you're done with one column and you turn the column, you turn it over and you roll the Torah to the next column that you're now going to read. If Torah is ever read from a cloth, Mr. Schaffner read it from a cloth this past Shabbos, so he read it, and it's rolled, it's a scroll, and you turn the scroll so you can read the column. The Megillah is the exception. The Megillah, we don't read it a scroll. How do we read it? We unfold it. And the reason given is the Megillah is called Igeres Hazos, it's called an Igeres, a letter. A letter is not read in a scroll, so we open up the letter and we fold it. We keep turning the folds of it, but it's entirely open. Why? So Mori Rabbi Rav Asher Weiss says, I think, a very, very beautiful and powerful idea. He says, rather than rolling up to the left side of the Megillah as it's read, the left side is folded over and over so that when the Megillah is finally completed, the entire story is exposed at once. Each incident of the Megillah presents no proof of Hashem's involvement. Only when you see the entire story from the beginning to the end do you go, oh, that's why that happened that way. That wasn't a coincidence. That wasn't chance. Hashem wasn't hidden or missing or a mystery. Only when the whole thing is open can you now see the entire picture from the beginning to the end. So normally we roll and we scroll and it goes and we cover up what we've just read. But when it comes to Purim, we unfold it and the whole thing's open and we see it all at once, because it's only with that 30,000 foot perspective we can look down, and now we see Hashem's guiding hand in the entire story of Purim as it unfolds. The Arizal notes, the great Rabbi Yechezkel, the great Kabbalist, the Arizal notes that although Hashem's name is never explicitly mentioned in the Megillah, it does appear as an acronym in several places. One, the beginning of the Megillah, Yavo HaMelech, the end, Yavo HaMelech v'Haman Hayom, when Esther says, let the king and Haman come today, Yud of Yavo, Hey of Hamelach, Vav of the Haman, Hey of Hayom is Yud, then Hey, then Vav, then Hey. Hashem's name are the acronym, the first letters of, Yavo Hamelach v'Haman Hayom. Then the beginning of the Megillah, Ki Chalsa Elav Hara, the harm against Haman was final. The last letters, Ki Yud, Chalsa Hey, Elav Vav Hara Hey. Spell out Hashem's name. So the pasuk with Hashem's name in its first letters depicts Haman's rise to power and the threat of destruction that loomed over Klal Yisrael. The second pasuk in which Hashem's name appears, in the last letters, is Haman's downfall. This highlights the central lesson of the Megillah, that Hashem's name appears at the beginning to spell the words of destruction. At the end, it reveals his name really spells the words of salvation. That Hashem's name is there from the beginning to the end. Even when it seems hopeless and helpless, doom and gloom, even when it sounds like destruction, Hashem's name is embedded. And when it all works out and there's salvation, when there's reason, when we can make sense of it, Hashem's name is again embedded. From beginning to end, Hashem's name is embedded at the start and at the finish, because Hashem is with us all along. So we don't read it rolling it like we do everything else. We read it where it is all open at once, so we see it all at once. Parsha Tzav, page 568 in the Art Scroll Stone, Chumash. By Daber Hashem el Moshe Lemor, God spoke to Moshe saying, Tzaves Aaron ves banav Lemor, Zos Torah Olah, Hi ha'olah amogda al-mizbeach kol halayla ad haboker, ve'esh ha-mizbeach tukad bo. We're continuing with the laws of the sacrifices of the korbanos. The goal of the korbanos is to become karov, to breed and to bring us close to Hashem. That is the essence, that is the goal, that is what they are about. So Tzav, command Aaron and his sons. Rashi already notes that this is a relatively harsh language. Tzav, command. It doesn't say emor, speak to, say. It doesn't say daber, communicate, transmit. What does it say? Tzav. Tzav means command. Tzav is a relatively harsh language. Command. So Amar Shimon Rashi quotes, "B'yoser tzarach hakasav lazaris b'makam sheyesh chesron kis." Why does it need tzav? We've spoken about this years past. So if you're listening to multiple Parsha Shiurim, I know we've spoken about this years past, but we're going to bring some new insights this year. So what does it need to say tzav, command? Why such a harsh way of communicating? Rashi tells us, you know why? There's an expense involved. It costs money. So when I tell you to do something and it doesn't cost you anything, you're more likely to do it. But if you have to reach into your wallet, like for the global campaign, express gratitude, enable and help you to continue. Everyone, Parsha class is amazing. Could you help us get it out there? It's not that amazing. I wish I could. I've already allocated everywhere. Ukraine, which of course is a priority, give to the Ukraine certainly before you give to the global campaign. So chesron kiss, chisaron kiss, the moment there's an expense, the moment we have to dig into our own pocket, maybe, I don't know, it's not that great, I don't love you that much. Is there any other way? Do we have to? I can't really afford. So Moshe has to come along and say, tzav. Here we have the strong language of, because of the chisaron kiss, we have the strong language of tzav. Now, we have to understand, asks Rabbi Yechezkel Levenstein, the Mashgiach of Panovich, to whom is this command directed? To the cheapest, stingiest, least enthusiastic member of Klal Yisrael? No. To whom is this command directed? Aaron. Saves Aaron ve'ezbanav. Hello, Kohen Gadol lo rak shaya adam ma'amarom b'yosef shebador. Hu echad me'ashir ma'gedolim ba'am Yisrael. Mitzvah legadlo b'kesef. It's not only that the Kohen Gadol is supposed to be distinguished in their righteousness and virtue, so that one wouldn't think that the expense would hold them back. One wouldn't think they would need extra encouragement or cajoling. Not only are they supposed to be among the most righteous and virtuous, but they're also supposed to be independently wealthy. Kamosh Matzino, the Gemara in Yuma says, Gadlayu Mishal Achiv. Maybe not independently, we're supposed to make him wealthy. Because, people respect and admire wealth. If the Kohen Gadol was a schlepper with worn, tattered clothing, driving a jalopy, who didn't know where his next meal was coming from and couldn't pay his mortgage, how would anyone respect him? So our job is to bolster, to hold him up. So you're talking about a Kohen Gadol who had money, and you're talking about a Kohen Gadol who's supposed to be righteous. This is the individual that Moshe has to say Tzav. This is the person that we're worried and afraid if they find out the cost of matzah, they're going to throw away Pesach. This is the person, this is the Kohen Gadol you're talking about. This is the highest level of the land. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Moreover, we find the end of the Parsha. Vayas Aaron above is called Dvar Mashativ Hashem Biad Moshe. Rashi says Lahagit Shvachan Shalitu Yamin Ismo. Aaron didn't deviate right or left. Aaron didn't hesitate whatsoever. So here the great Aaron who doesn't hesitate, who with alacrity, enthusiasm, and zeal and passion. And this is the one that Moshe needs to say Tzav, because it's going to cost them a few shekel? Are you kidding me? Seriously? You know what Rabbi Yechezkel Levenstein says? Yarda haTorah la'omek tchunos nafsho shel adam. And the answer is, yeah. There's a piece of all of us that doesn't want to spend. There's a piece of every one of us whose first instinct is, Hashem, isn't there a way for me and you to be close without it costing me? Isn't there a way to feel connected without digging into my wallet? Every one of us, including the great Kohen Gadol, no matter how wealthy and no matter how righteous. It's tchunas nafsho shel adam, the very human psyche, the very way we were designed. Even somebody for whom the money won't make a difference remains aware of whether there's a cost involved or not. Even the person for whom the money doesn't make a difference is aware, is this free or is there a cost? There's a book called Scorecasting, which is a very interesting book. Statisticians and economists did an analysis of sports. A fascinating book. Can you freeze out the free throw shooter if you call a timeout? Does it really work if all kinds of stats that we assume? You'll only appreciate this if you like sports. But it did the data analysis to determine, is it true? Is it true that superstars always get the call from the ref? Is it true that all kinds of these things, if you're interested in that, it's fascinating. So one of the things it talks about in there is when athletes or celebrities or superstars are invited to make appearances. So they're offered $100,000 to come make an appearance at an event or compete in a tournament, let's say a PGA star. So the book gives the data about how often those superstars say no, that money's not worth it to them. And then they say, I'll fly out your whole family. Now, if you're the superstar, what would you say? Fly out my whole family. I could fly out my whole family. I'm a millionaire or a billionaire, plus the $100,000 you're offering me, I can allocate a little bit of it to fly out my family. How much money is that after all? If they were offered, instead of $100,000, we'll offer you $105,000, they'd say, thanks, but no thanks. I don't need the money. I don't want to go. But the moment they say, we'll fly out your family, they say, I'm in. There's some psyche, there's some mental switch that's flipped when you fly out my family. Ooh, what a deal. What a bargain. What a saving. Even though financially, mathematically, it doesn't add up. The wealthiest person in the world can have all the money in the world in which that cost won't impact their lives whatsoever, yet they remain very aware of the cost. So Rabbi Yechezkel Levenstein answers, you see from here something very powerful, not negative about Aaron HaKohen. This is not a criticism of him, but rather it's a observation, it's a reflection on the human psyche and the human condition, that we were designed in such a way that the moment something costs us, we're aware of it and we hesitate because of it. And that's why Tzav, we have to push through and we have to persevere and we have to make sure, what do we care about and what do we value? That's what I wrote about in the weekly last week. Imagine if somebody found your credit card statement, what would it say about you? Do you pay more to stream entertainment or do you pay more to stream Torah? The global campaign. You're willing to pay to stream entertainment. What are you willing to pay to stream Torah? It's a simple question. But really, all of our bills and finances all together, what do they say about us? Ches from kiss. What are we willing to spend on? What do we run eagerly to spend on? And what do we hesitate and demur and argue and rationalize and justify to spend money? People do not like to part with their money. Yisrael Salanter once visited a very wealthy person to collect tzedakah. And the man opened his safe to give the money, and he was called out of the room for a moment. So Yisrael Salanter sat there in shock, and he got up and he ran out of the room. So the Gvir, the wealthy individual, when he came back to give him the gift, said, "Why'd you leave the room? You're Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. You're the founder, the father of the Muslim movement. If anyone could be trusted with an open safe filled with cash, it's you. Why'd you run out of the room?" So listen to what Rabbi Yisrael said to him. Gemara Makos Chav Gimel tells us, "Gezel va'arayos nafsha shel adam mis'ava lemu mechamdosam." There are two things that the human being is drawn to, desires, yearns. There is no apotropos for. And they are gezel. We love money. And if it's easy to cut corners or bend the rules or misreport on our taxes, it's so tempting. Every human being is tempted by it. Not every human being gives into that temptation, but every human being is tempted. Gezel and arayos. Promiscuity, licentiousness, sexuality, everyone struggles and is drawn to it. So which one is a greater desire? So the Gemara there says that miutan ba'arayas and rubam begezel. Miutan ba'arayas, very few people actually cross the line of promiscuity, but most people steal at some point. At some point, they're using their business phone for personal reasons. They billed an extra minute that they weren't working as hard as they could for that minute. They took a pencil home from work that did. Rubam, most people at some point struggled with being completely honest. So said Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, if fewer people violate the boundary of promiscuity than of gezel, than of stealing, and yet when it comes to promiscuity, you have a prohibition called yichud. You're not allowed to be alone with someone with whom you're not allowed to be intimate, because the temptation would be too great. There's a prohibition of yichud. Vice President Pence observed that prohibition. You're not allowed to be alone. So if the violation of yichud applies to another person, and more people steal than cross the line of promiscuity, then there was an isser yichud for me to be alone with the money in your safe. So when you left the room, I got up and ran out. I wasn't tempted. I wasn't going to steal. But if the human condition, the human psyche is programmed to be drawn, I didn't even want to be tempted. Just like if I were alone with a woman in a locked room, I wouldn't do anything, but I'm not allowed to be, so too I'm not allowed to be. So you see what a person values, what they care about, and we see this observation of, in general, what we're tempted by the need to have the lashon tzav, command. Such a strong language, Aaron needed it. Why did Aaron need it? Even the great Aaron, he was wealthy and he was righteous. Why did he need it? Lashon tzav, because once there's a chisaron kiss, once it costs money, everybody reacts differently. It changes the equation altogether. Okay. Next insight on this. So we'll look at Rav Soloveitchik. Soloveitchik says, in the Rav Chumash, Tzav. The Torah often uses variants of the word Tzav in discussing the service in the Mishkan. V'ata titzaveh, Parshas titzaveh. Rashi on this pasuk provides the following background. Tzav means zirus miyad uledoros. The word Tzav means immediate moment for future generations and urgency. Torah must especially express urgency in a situation where there's a loss of money. Many mitzvos involve monetary loss. So why is Tzav used specifically when it comes to karbanos? You know what else includes monetary loss? Pesach. It says 7 days matzahs you should eat. It doesn't say Tzav. Do you know what a handmade shmura matzah is going to cost? Tzav. You know what else costs money? Jewish tuition. It doesn't say when you teach your children, Tzav, dig deep. Go in debt for years to come for tuition. You know what else costs a lot of money? Your lulav and esrog, your dalad minim. It doesn't say dig deep, buy the deluxe set, 4 species, lulav and esrog. So why is it specifically here when it comes to karbanos? That's the question of the Rav. The loss of money is intrinsic to certain mitzvahs, such as the mitzvah of giving charity. So the pasuk says, Tzav is b'nei Yisrael. The word Tzav is used when a loss of assets is intrinsic to the mitzvah. Offering a sacrifice similarly involves such a loss of assets. Rashi, right? So, in other words, someone can gift you these other things, but then there are intrinsic. When you give tzedakah, by definition, you're giving away money. It costs you, by definition. So too over here, the korban, you're giving away something that costs you. What are you giving away that costs you? Can't someone gift you the korban like they can gift you the daled minim? Rashi uses the term ziruz, or urgency, in describing how the mitzvah is fulfilled. There's an urgency associated with mitzvahs that involve monetary loss. What is the meaning of the word ledoros in this context? What does it mean, bless you, for generations? The mitzvahs of mezuzah, tefillin, and Shabbos are clearly ledoros too. Thousands of years have gone by, and these mitzvahs are observed as they have been when they were originally given. But in what way are the mitzvahs of the Mishkan practiced today? There has been no korban tamid for almost 2,000 years. In what sense does this mitzvah ledoros? The word tzav here means urgency, zirus. It means miyad, immediately, and ledoros. Do it for generations, but you don't do it for generations. This is about to spell out, our Parsha is about to tell us all about the laws of sacrifices, which ended with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So where is the fulfillment of the ledoros for generations? Gemara Megillah Lamed Aleph recounts a conversation between Hashem and Avraham in the context of the bris bein Absarim. Avraham asked how he was to know that Hashem would not forsake the Jewish people if they sinned. Hashem answered in the merit of the korbanos. Avraham insisted the merit is fine when the korbanos are in existence. What happens after the destruction, after the korban? Hashem replied that if Bnei Yisrael learned the law surrounding the korbanos, he would consider their study as a virtual sacrificial offering. When we cannot offer sacrifices, we recite the halachas pertaining to them as a substitute. There's a mikdash in our day as well. Not physically, but where? In the study of halacha. This is the Masorah of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Today we read Parsha Shkolim as if the Beis HaMikdash was still standing. It's L'doros. Parshas Parah reminds us to be ritually pure, to bring the korban Pesach. Although we no longer offer a korban Pesach, we read Parshas Parah as if the Beis HaMikdash still exists. Says the Rav, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash today, so where's the L'doros? Where is the message in perpetuity of the sacrifices? The answer is, when we study these laws, it is as if we have done them. The truth is, in some ways, it's even more, because these laws only pertain to certain times. The korbanos can be offered only during certain distinct times, but you could learn about them anytime. So you could tap into the energy of the korban by learning about it in some ways that even surpasses the performance of them. So where do we find Hashem today? The Gemara says in Brachos that after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, where can Hashem be found? Dalad Amma Shel Halacha. It can be found in the 4 cubits of halacha. Says Rabbi of Schechter, what does that mean? Once the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, where can Hashem be found? In the 4 cubits of halacha. What does that mean? It means one went to the Beis HaMikdash in order to have a rendezvous with Hashem. In the Beis HaMikdash, you felt an intense presence. The Shechina is a shachein. He was available. He was accessible. There was a closeness. There was an intimacy. There was a connection. Where do we find that today? When we learn Torah. Dalad Amma Shel Halacha. When we sit and we learn Torah, Hashem is there. We transport ourselves into a virtual Beis HaMikdash. That same feeling and that same result that came from being present in the Beis HaMikdash is what we can achieve when we immerse ourselves, not in the Beis HaMikdash, but Dalad Amma Shel Halacha. When we immerse ourselves in the study of Torah and in Halacha, we find Hashem in that place. Rav Nachman is another interpretation. We're going to get past this pasuk. I find myself saying this weekly, but we're going to get past the first pasuk. Rav Nachman of Breslov has another beautiful insight here. Says the Heilige Rav Nachman, Ein Tzav L'Lashem Zirus Miyad L'Doros. Amar Reb Shimon, B'Yosef Tzarech L'Zariz B'Makom Sheish Chesron Kis, V'Hakavani Shelefamim Yachol Lihigarim L'Adam Hefsedim Korban Lo Nasa Karoi. You could lose money. There was the cost of the korban, and if the korban was pasul, let's say the korban was illegitimate, then you had to bring another korban. That cost money. You had to dig deep into your funds. So the Torah says, because there's a cost associated, we need a little extra encouragement. Do it, even though it'll be expensive. Do it, even though it costs money. However, yesh gam dvarim nosafim shenishmarim bekis. So now Rab Nachman, Likutei Muaron Chelik Aleph. Again, we're looking at this halacha, Shulchan HaShabbos of Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman doesn't explicitly say these ideas. They're based on his teachings in Likutei Muaron and applied to our Parsha. So Rav Nachman, Likutei Muaron, writes the following. Chelik Aleph Simon Chaf Aleph. Misharotza lezakos legiloi elokus yair lo bo'orav ma'od. A person who wants to merit being lit up by the light of Hashem. We walk around and we're in darkness. A person who's down and downtrodden and depressed and despondent describes, I'm in a very dark place. I hear from people, sadly, too much. I'm in a very dark place. Dark place means I feel alone, I feel abandoned, I feel I'm struggling. A dark place means I'm struggling with faith, with connection. A dark place. So who doesn't want to break out into the light? Who doesn't want to become enlightened in the most positive sense? Who doesn't want to bask in the light of Hashem? So what do you need to do in order to achieve that? You need to sanctify and purify the 7 candles. What are the 7 candles? What are the 7 prisms or windows into the light of Hashem? You ready? They are the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils. 6. So these are 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 2 nostrils, and the mouth. Sorry, I left out the mouth. So the 7 entrances of the head are the 7 candles, the 7 windows through which we experience the light of Hashem, meaning our senses. The more that we sanctify, the more that we elevate what we look at, what we listen to, what we smell, what we speak, the more that we sanctify these entrances into who we are, these 7 candles, these 7 windows, these 7 entrances, the more that we can experience and be lit up from the light of Hashem. Now, most of the entrances have a cover. Most of them have a cover that protect them. And they protect negative things from infiltrating and compromising, corrupting. Our eyes have eyelids. Our eyelids close. Our eyelids protect our eyes. Our eyelids create tears. Something's coming at your eye, and you have a good response time. Your eyelid should close. Our eyelid is there to protect our eye. It snaps closed quickly. It responds to the threat in order to protect it. You know what else it can protect us from? If there's an image opposite us that we shouldn't be looking at, close your eyes. We have eyelids. We have the capacity to close our eyes, whether it's from a particle that's about to fly into our eye and threaten it, or whether it's from an image which is about to infiltrate and invade our eye and threaten it. We have eyelids. With your ears. I go to weddings and I see people come now with the music is so, I know I've reached that age, and now I'm complaining about how loud the music is. Then when you don't hear the music, that's the next stage. But I'm at the stage where you complain about how loud the music is. So now people come to weddings and simchas with earplugs. They put earplugs in their ears in order to protect their hearing. And the Gemara Ksuba says, you know what earplugs are really for? Ksubas daf hey. Amr Chazal, etz ba'oso shel adam domos liyasedos. Why are a person's fingers shaped like spades? The reason our fingers look the way they do is you're supposed to plug. The fingers were designed by Hashem to fit perfectly in your ear. Why? That's disgusting. You don't pick your ear in public. Why are your fingers fitting in your ear? Because if something threatens to infiltrate, to invade your ears, that will corrupt and compromise, i.e. lashon hara, profanity, vulgarity, gossip, slander. If a weapon of mass destruction is about to enter your earlobe, your eardrum, Kadosh Baruch Hu designed the fingers to put into the ears to protect them. It's not my cute little drush. It's a Gemara Ksubas daf hey. The Gemara there says that's also why you have dangly earlobes. Your earlobe can fold up and fit right into your ear. Someone's talking lashon hara, you should fold up your earlobe, put it in your ear, go, I can't hear you. Kadosh Baruch Hu created an opening, a window, but if you want the light of Hashem to come through, you have to protect that window. Keep that window clean. Keep that window open. And if there are contaminating poison that enters, the images through the eye or the poor speech through the ears, we have the capacity to protect it. Lepeh, yesh lo rak choma achas, gam chomo sheshameres alav, klape chutz, klape pnim. What about the mouth? The mouth has multiple protections and walls. Chazal say haloshen mukefes b'shtei chomos, achas shel etzem v'achas shel basar. K'dei lishmor aleh shelo tishtalach b'chushiyos v'daros ha'olam b'diburim rayim. Gemara Erech and Daf Tezvav says, the mouth is such a weapon of mass destruction. If we say the wrong thing, we can murder and kill and destroy that it needs to have two boundaries, two walls. What are the two walls? First we have the teeth, and then we have the lips. You could close your teeth, which will hold back your tongue, and then you can close your lips. So each of these entrances, the 7 candles, the 7 windows to the light of Hashem, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a mouth, have a covering, a kiss. A kiss is a covering. Which is the one that doesn't? Who? Ha'af. The nose doesn't. Ha'af eino tzarich lizgonein b'nei reichos asurim, aval misamos midas hakas. The nose doesn't need to be protected from forbidden smells because there is no prohibition to imbibe a prohibited smell. So what is the nose a symbol of? Kas, anger. How do we describe anger? Charon af. Anger is described in the Torah as nostrils flaring. V'akach yesh lidrosh as divrei Reb Shimon. Shebiyosa tzarich l'zariz mokum sheish chisaron kiss. So now Reb Nachman, or based on Reb Nachman, we reinterpret this entire teaching. When do you need to encourage someone? When do they need lashon tzav? When do they need the stronger language of encouragement of tzav? In a place of chesron kiss. So we interpret that until now to mean, when do they need most encouragement? When there is an expense, a cost. But Reb Nachman says chisaron kiss means when there's no covering. The eyes have a covering, the ears have a covering, the mouth has a covering, but anger has no covering, and it needs the greatest protection. The threat and the danger of losing ourselves to anger, that requires the greatest protection. Chisaron kiss is the thing that has no covering. It's a whole new interpretation. I guarantee you never heard this before. I never saw this before. What is the place that has no cover? Not chisaron kiss that there's an expense or cost. Chisaron kiss that the place that has no covering. What has no covering? Kas. Tzarich lizar b'miyuchad b'chol hakasher l'kas l'charnaf shein kiss she'otzeroso. Adam nota mitivel esragis because kamash mafriolo. Person can easily get angry with whatever bothers us. Kol hakoes afilu shchina ena chashuv b'kenegdo. When you're angry, you lose your mind. When you're angry, it clouds your judgment. When you're angry, you make poor decisions. Gemara Nadarim. Lachein tzarich zihiras v'ziras yisem shmir al-kas she'en lamatzor tiv'i shiach somoso. When it comes to anger, there is no natural response. If a particle's flying at your eye without your thinking about it, your eyelid shuts. Your ear, you can close it up. It's so loud, you stand at the wedding with your hand over your ears. If there's danger or damage, you instinctively cover up. But when it comes to anger, charon af, we fly into a fit of rage and anger without even thinking about it. It doesn't have a kiss. It's a chisaron kiss. It's missing, it's covering. And that's why it needs a lashon tzav, because when it comes to moderating anger, we need an extra emphasis, extra enthusiasm, extra zeal. That is the teaching of the Halakha Rabbi Nachman. Okay, let's go weiter. Let's go further. Let's see. Reuven Feinstein. Perek Vav, Pasuk Gimel. Moving right along. V'la'avash hakohen midavarim acheslevad yibash b'saro. So we now move to the opening service that's being described is what's called the Trumas Hadeshen. The Trumas Hadeshen is taking away the ash. Whatever burned on the altar overnight created a pile of ash, and the first service of the morning was taking out the garbage. We've spoken in years past that in Judaism taking out the garbage is a dignified service. There's nothing, it's not beneath any of us. When you walk outside and you see a piece of garbage, it's not beneath anybody. It's not someone else's job. But taking out the garbage, removing the ash from the altar. So Reuven Feinstein, in his new sefer, Nahar Shalom, asks, the very first service performed in the daily avodah was the Trumas Hadeshen. Kohen taking some ash from his beach, moving it to a spot near the eastern side of the ramp, where it miraculously sunk into its place. What exactly was the lesson of the service? Some people under the impression it was simply an act of housekeeping. Right? The easy understanding is, if you're going to bring the next sacrifice, you need the mizbeach to be clear, so you got to remove the ash. If you're going to have more garbage to throw away, someone eventually has to empty the garbage. So that's a simple understanding, that's a simple purpose. However, this approach is incorrect. We must bear in mind, he writes, that there was room on the mizbeach for a fire that was 24 amos square. There were offerings that were burnt upon it all day. The fats and limbs were offered well into the night. The mitzvah of Trumas Hadeshin is to take a mere shovelful and place it on the side of the Mizbeach. The rest of the ash that needed to be cleared was moved, but not part of the service. What then was the lesson of the avodah of the Trumas Hadeshin? Meaning, if it was to take out the garbage, it's kind of peculiar. You didn't take out the whole garbage. You only took out a little bit of the garbage. Yechezkel says, it's garbage day tomorrow. Could you take out all the garbage? And then I take out one bag, and I leave 2 full garbage drums. Get into bed. You took out the garbage? I took out a bag. That won't bode well. I don't suggest trying that at home. If you're supposed to take out the garbage, you got to take out the garbage. So why is the Kohen not taking out the garbage? He's only taking out one bag. He's taking out 1 shovel full of ash. Clear out the top of the Mizbeach. It's time for the new korbanos. A. B. Where does he put the ash? Imagine she says, did you take out the garbage? Yeah, I put it by the front door. Front door? That doesn't help. The garbage men don't come to the front door. Bring it to the curb. Bring it to the edge of the driveway. What are you doing? So here too, the Kohen took the shovel of the ash and he put it next to the ramp. What do you mean? Take it to the dumpster. Take it out to the garbage. If you're doing the Trumas Hadeshin, if you're taking out the garbage, go all the way. Don't do half a job. Why didn't he keep going? Why didn't he keep going? So previously we've shared an insight of Rav Hirsch, which I love. It's a Yechezkel insight. I said it over at a Yechezkel. The insight of Rav Hirsch is, what are you doing on top of that Mizbeach? What are you about to offer and bring? Not a trick question, people. Korban, sacrifice. Before I could bring today's sacrifice, I have to honor and remember that there was a sacrifice yesterday. What do I think? I'm the first big Kanaka to bring a sacrifice? I'm the first person who's been asked to sacrifice? I'm the first person who had to be Moser Nefesh? Before I make my sacrifice today, I remember there were those who came before me yesterday and made a sacrifice yesterday. And I honor their sacrifice by taking the ash and putting it next to the Mizbeach. This is not functional. This is not simply to be able to take out the garbage. That is not the point. That is not the purpose of this, taking out the garbage. This is a service. The Kohen put on special clothing for this. Kohen didn't put on a sweatpants and torn t-shirt, take out the garbage. There was a special clothing, special wardrobe, because this wasn't functional, pragmatic, taking out the garbage. This was a service. You honor the sacrifice of yesterday before you approach the Mizbeach to bring your sacrifice of today. But Reuven Feinstein brings a different answer. At Akedas Yitzchak, the Torah recounts that Avraham offered the ram that was tangled in the bushes in Ola, Tachaz Beno, in place of his son. Rashi there cites the exposition of the Medrash, that with each avodah that Avraham performed with that ram, he prayed Hashem should view the service as having been performed on Yitzchak instead. Rashi writes, on each service that he performed with it, he would say, may it be the will of Hashem that this was done to my son, as if my son was slaughtered, as if my son was sprinkled, as if his skin was flayed, as if he was burned and became ashes. The significance of these prayers was great. We reference the ashes of Yitzchak, who of course was not touched in the blessing of Gvuros and Shachar Shmona Esrei in the first day of Rosh Hashanah. In the piyut of Talazu, we mention the ashes of Yitzchak. It makes its way into the davening of Rosh Hashanah. Additionally, the Yerushalmi and Tainus cites one opinion that the reason ashes were placed on top of the Aron Kodesh at a public fast was to recall before Hashem the merit of Yitzchak, who was considered to have been consumed by the fire and turned to ash. What is the significance of ash in these statements of Chazal? We know that an offering is offered with its slaughter and that it affects atonement with the sprinkling of the blood. What is the symbolism of the offering being reduced to ash? Why such a focus and emphasis? Let this ash be in the honor of Yitzchak. I understand when you say, let the shechita, let the slaughter be in the honor as if I slaughtered Yitzchak. Let the sprinkling of the blood be like the sprinkle of the blood of Yitzchak. Let the skin be flayed like the skin of Yitzchak were flayed. Let each part of the sacrifice correspond as if it happened to Yitzchak. But the ash? Why the ash? The ash is the garbage. The ash is the garnished. The ash is the nothing. Why are we so focused on the ash? I believe the answer, says Reuven, is that the ash is the physical representation of the idea that we have taken a given commandment to its absolute completion. This is what Avraham prayed for with the ashes of Yitzchak. He wished that Hashem would keep performing the merit that Avraham attained by carrying out the instructions of Hashem through their final stage. When the Kohen removes some of the ash from the previous day's offering, he is ceremoniously capping off the service that took place the previous almost 24 hours with an action that demonstrates that Hashem's service has been completely and optimally carried out to the last detail. Not only were the mandatory services performed, the shechita through the zrika, but even the fats and limbs that were offered were consumed and rendered ash, the way the mitzvah is supposed to be performed. With this declaration regarding the previous day's offering, the Kohen starts the new day with the same commitment to see to it that service of Hashem will be performed optimally and will reach the level of absolute completion. So the Rav Hirsch said the ash represents the sacrifice of yesterday. We have to honor that before we move on to the sacrifice of today. Reuven Feinstein Shlita says something different. You know what this emphasis and focus on the ash represents? Hashem, yesterday I didn't bail. I didn't leave in the middle. I didn't give up. I didn't mail it in. I didn't do half a job. I saw it all the way through. This ash represents the completion. You know, it reminds me, we do this at the Seder. When we finish the Seder, what do we sing? Chasal Sidur Pesach Kehilchaso. There's no other mitzvah that you do. You know, shake the lulav and Esther, put it down and say, Hashem, I did the Dalet Minim. The 100th call of the shofar. We did it, yay! Chasal Sidur Pesach. The Korban Pesach. These Korbanos. So there's this notion, the ash, the Trumas Hadesh, and Hashem, I take a shovel of the ash and I put it next to the Mizbeach. Because I want to show you and demonstrate to you, and I want to demonstrate to myself that I completed what I started yesterday. I got it done. I made it to the finish line. I saw it all the way through. You know, sadly, that's so unusual. How often do we start projects? How often are we excited at the beginning of a project? But then we abandon it, we bail on it, we run out of steam. I told you before that the Ramchal writes in Mesilas Yesharim in the chapter of Zrizus. Zrizus, alacrity, zeal, enthusiasm. He says there are two types. You need zrizus to start a project, and you need zrizus when you're going to run into the wall in a project. Project in the beginning is easy to have zrizus. So excited. Going to finish all Shas, the Daf Yomi. So excited I'm going to lose 100 pounds. So excited I'm going to train for a marathon. So excited I'm going to paint the garage. And then in the middle of the project, you run into that wall. It's not so exciting anymore. It's not so fun anymore. I'm not so motivated anymore. That, says the Ramchal, is when you need the second burst of zrizus. So we take that shovel full of ash and we say, I didn't give up. Even when it wasn't so exciting anymore. Even when I ran out of steam. Even when I ran out of time. I didn't give up. This ash represents seeing it all the way through, all the way until completion. Perek Vav Pasuk Daled. Pasuk Daled. Ufasharas begadav levash begadim achirim v'otziras hadesh shel mechutz lamachane al makom tahor. He removes his clothing and he puts on other clothing, and he removes the ash to the outside of the camp to a pure place. The Kohen puts on special taking out the garbage clothing. Put on your take out the garbage outfit. Why does one have a taking out the garbage outfit? What does that say? Says Rav Gifter. The Gemara Shabbos. You know why he changes his clothing? Because the clothing that you wore to cook in the kitchen is not the same uniform you wear when it's time to pour a cup of wine. You take off the apron, you change your clothing, and now you pour the cup of wine. Says Rav Gifter, the Rashi Tells. Mikan Nilmad Lakach Nifla Shari Ben Musa Olam Hamuna Bishol Eina Hamuna Mezigas Kosta Shochan HaMelach. What do you mean you change the clothing? It's the same person? You know, you don't have the same person who's in the back who's cooking, is not the same as the sous chef, is not the same as the dishwasher, is not the same as the maitre d'. It's different positions of distinction. Avalokein ba'avodas malchus shel olam koshimush b'lo apachos apchusim hareza kavod l'mishamesh kilu hu mishamesh b'shimas ha'ma'ula b'yoser heyo shetachlis shimushu kvod shamayim u'midas derech eretz rak hazihiris me'alich l'chavoda apchusa goremes. When it comes to the service of Hashem, there is no hierarchy. There is no high and low. There is no prominent and there is no lowly. When it comes to the service of Hashem, everything is a privilege. Everything is a privilege. You're collecting the Sidurim and Chumashim. You're organizing the chairs. You're picking up the garbage outside the shul. Nothing is beneath anyone. It's all a privilege. And you learn that from this pasuk, from this Rashi. Even though when it comes to others, there are different people who do different positions, and they have different status, different title, different compensation, and we view them with different prominence, but not so in the world of Avodas Hashem. In the world of Avodas Hashem, there is no class system, there is no hierarchy. Anyone engaged and involved in the world of serving Hashem, anyone who's advancing the will of Hashem, anyone who's advancing the vision of Hashem, we're all equal in His eyes, and we should all be equal in our eyes, because we're all part of advancing that mission. Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav. Finally, turn the page. Page 570 in the article Stone Chumash. Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach lo sichbeh. Eish tamid. Eish tamid. The name of Rav Juk's farm. Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach. What does that mean? Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach. A permanent fire should remain on the altar. Permanent fire. The Shlah HaKadosh. Shnei Luchas Abris, Rabbi Shai Halevi Horowitz. The Shlah HaKadosh writes in the name of Rav Moshe Cordovero, Matzasik Tzad Yad. He says, I found a manuscript. It says, Lamdeni Zakin Echad, Levatal Machshava, Yomar Pasuk Zahar Be Pa'amim. Eish Tamid Tukar al Mizbeach Lo Sechbeh. Uve'ein I Pashat Zakin Hayaliyah Navi. The Shlah quotes from Moshe Cordovero, who says, I found a manuscript that a man taught him, and who was that man? Eliyahu Hanavi. And what was the teaching of Eliyahu Hanavi? That when a person's mind is wandering, when a person is feeling tempted, when a person is about to give up, what should they repeat? What should be their mantra over and over again? Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach. A permanent fire must burn on the altar. Ulurova an v'nesu shel Rav lo ratz legalos akin yehizer b'zem mishaf nafa b'li b'machshavos avon or machshavos hevel. A person who has frivolous thoughts, a person who has negative thoughts, a person who has thoughts of temptation should say this pasuk over and over and over again. Why? So the answer is, the Ksav Sofer explains, because yesh pasuk atzma remez l'skulazu mishabalibo yuktas eish tamidus Hashem Yisbarach. Because if the fire is always burning inside you, if you're always on fire, then you'll be able to dispel these thoughts. Fire consumes what comes in its way. So if you're on fire, it will consume whatever temptation, whatever distraction comes in your way. The key is to be on fire. And this is the battle with Amalek. How often are we on fire? We're excited, we're exuberant, we're enthusiastic. And then our fire runs out. We fail to continue to fuel it, or someone else extinguished it. Cynicism. Nothing extinguishes a fire like cynicism, sarcasm. Amalek. That's the battle with Amalek. That's the battle of Purim. That's the Chiras Amalek. Asher korcha baderach. Pasuk says that Amalek attacked you. Asher korcha baderach. Korcha means lashon nikra. They happened upon you. Korcha means lashon kor. We were on fire. Talk to a kid who comes back from the year in Israel, a seminary girl. Mirz Hashem, Bezras Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Hashem is amazing. Don't look at that. You can't have that. Are you sure this is kosher? On fire. Fire. Trust me, they consume everything in their way. On fire. We were on fire. We came out of Mitzrayim on fire. 10 plagues, splitting of a sea. Har Sinai, revelation. Wow. Hashem, what a drasha. I'm on fire. Davening and mitzvahs, my neshama. I'm on fire. And then Amalek comes, Asher korcha baderach. Miloshan kor. The ice bucket challenge. Amalek comes with a big ice bucket of ice water, and they splash it right on our fire. Right on our fire. There's an expression among kids which I will not use. I will paraphrase. It says, why do you have to put out my fire? Why do you have to put out my fire? You know, they get all excited about something and you say, really? But I don't think that's true. Look at this. Or did you think of that? Or that won't work out for this reason. I say, why'd you have to put out my fire? We put out each other's fire all the time. When we ask that question, when we insert that doubt or that uncertainty or that cynicism or that sarcasm, we take a big bucket of ice water and we pour it right on the head of somebody who's on fire. You know why most often? Because we're threatened by it. When you see someone else who's on fire, singing during davening or a long shemona essay, or refuses to engage in talking with you when you're trying to talk to them. Oh, you're such a holy roller, now you're not talking? Last week you talked to me the whole davening. Such a holy roller, look what you wear, look at your kid, look at that. Why do you say that? They're on fire. For whatever reason, they don't want to talk right now. They're in davening. For whatever reason, they have a long shemona essay. For whatever reason, their eyes are closed during Kedusha, they're swaying and singing. For whatever reason, they're coming to Shalashidus like a good Jew. That's sure. And you're going to go and put out their fire? You're Amalek. That's Amalek. In our own head, the voice in our own head that says, who are you kidding? You're long shemona esrei, you're shuckling. Who are you kidding? 5 minutes from now, what you're going to be doing and watching and saying, who are you kidding? That's Amalek, is the voice of Amalek. Put out our fire. So Shlah HaKadosh has a tradition from Moshe Cordovero, who has a tradition from Eliyahu Hanavi himself, that when you're sitting at home and you're tempted by a sin, when you're thinking about giving up on yourself and who you could be, simply say to yourself over and over again, Our pasuk, Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach lo sichbeh. Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach lo sichbeh. Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach lo sichbeh. I have to have a permanent fire on this altar. I have to stay on fire. I got to light my fire. I got to go figure out, who do I need to listen to that makes me feel lit on fire? What do I need to be around? What comes is what fabrengen, what tish, what person, what personality, what shear do I have to turn on? What podcast, what song, what music do I have to play? Because eish tamid tukar al mizbeach. I'm not letting anything lower this flame. I'm not letting anything extinguish this fire. You know what we have to be like? Trick birthday candles. Anyone you ever see those trick birthday candles? Haha. Person blows out, they go back. Person blows them out, they're back on fire. I don't believe in blowing out candles or making wishes. That's a whole I'm the Grinch who stole birthdays. But that's a whole separate conversation. But let's say you believe in blowing out candles. They have trick birthday candles. You keep trying to blow them out, they keep coming back. We have to be trick birthday candles. Try blowing me out with your cynicism and your sarcasm and your skepticism. Try putting out my fire. I'm a trick birthday candle. I'm going to keep coming back at you because I'm on fire. I'm on fire because I'm here to be on fire. My life is about being on fire. I'm on fire. Ben Adam Lachavero. I'm not done talking about Ukraine and raising money for the Ukraine and caring about the people in Ukraine. I'm going to be Ben Adam Lachavero to make sure that Mishloach Manos, I don't give to the most popular people. You know how I come up with, I try to think Mishloach Manos, not who's getting Mishloach Manos from everyone, who's not getting, who's unable to go out and experience. Be on fire to care about other people. Be on fire to show up to that sheer. Be on fire to sing and let yourself go. Be on fire in your amunah and bitachon. Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach lo sichbeh. Don't let anything put out that fire. Stay on fire always, always. Talia, what can we do? It's an hour. Time is up, even though there's so much to talk about. But we have it for next year. There's a pasuk at the end of the Parsha. Paraches pasuk lamed hey. Then we'll feel like we read the whole Parsha. So we'll feel good for one more second, 30 more seconds. Upesach ol moed teshuvah yomim v'layla shivas yomim u'shmartem es b'shmeresh Hashem lo samusu ki chen tzivesi. At the entrance of the Ol Moed shall you dwell day and night for a 7-day period, and you shall protect Hashem's charge so that you shall not die. What is going on over here? Teshvu yomim v'layla. Sit day and night. Let's end with this. An insight of Rav Soloveitchik. Umi Pesach al Moed lo seitzu shivas yomim. You shall not leave the entrance of the tent of meeting for 7 days. Proper preparation is a necessary condition for any encounter with holiness. For example, in the prelude to receiving the Torah, Moshe warned the nation, be ready for 3 days. Don't go near a woman. Similarly, Aaron had to submit to a 7-day preparation period prior to the dedication of the Mishkan. Every Kohen Gadol subsequently went through a similar sequester prior to Yom Kippur. The prohibition of muktzah is centered on the need for preparation. You have to be, instead of being muktzah, because you didn't designate it, you have to designate it. Among the prohibitions of muktzah is food that was not prepared prior to Shabbos. One does not merit nor is worthy of celebrating Shabbos unless you prepared for it. The mitzvah Siras HaOmer is how we prepare for the receiving of the Torah. One counts the years before Shemitah and Yovel's preparation. Holiness does not arrive suddenly. It comes only by invitation inherent in the act of preparation. It's a beautiful insight. Let's turn Friday into Erev Shabbos. Ein kedusha b'li hachana. There is no holiness without preparing for it. Anyone who tells you they stumbled on holiness, it is a counterfeit holiness. Genuine, authentic, real holiness takes preparation. It takes work, it takes mindset, it takes effort. You don't stumble or trip on holiness. It takes work, and that's what the end of the Parsha is telling us. Afreilich and Purim. Have a wonderful Purim. Everyone's invited to our home from 12:30 to 2 on Purim. In front, we're having a big block party with French fries. Apparently, I will be dressed as a French fry. What you do for Shalom Weiss. So everyone's invited 12:30 to 2. Afreilich and Purim. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay holy. Pick it up, Mitzvah Hashem, next week.